from a scientific point of view, incoherent, now makes complete sense. If God is outside the universe, he's outside of time.
Far from being unable to escape God, there is a very real contingent of non-believers, and I would count myself among their number, who are unable by any means to discover him, who seek and do not find, who knock and receive, as it were, no answer. I think it would be great if God existed. I really do. I would absolutely love to escape death. I would relish being the recipient of unconditional love. Less selfishly, I would love to be able to worship that which deserves to be worshipped. I just don't think it's true. Now, try as I might, look where I can, I find no response, no hint, nothing.
Hello, all of our Pangburn fans and the fans of the channel. I am Don. This is, as always, Travis and John. What's up, guys? How's your night been?
Good. Ready
Very
to rock
good.
and roll. June 1st, by the way, is creeping up, you guys. June 1st, Alex O'Connor and Dinesh D'Souza head-to-head in New York City. If you want to get tickets, come and join us. Tickets are available at pang-burn.com/tickets. And the event will be live streamed here on the Pangburn YouTube channel for free for everyone. So if you guys can't make it, I hope you guys sit back and enjoy. And this will be, again, the evening of June 1st.
I'm excited. I'm going to be there, of course.
Cool.
John is also going to be there, right, John?
Yes.
Less likely, unfortunately.
Less likely?
Is looking less likely, sadly.
Is that because you're pretty sure Alex O'Connor is going to crush Dinesh D'Souza and you don't want to cry in front of her?
Dinesh D'Souza isn't exactly my favorite horse in this particular race.
Why
He's
not?
not? Why not? Wait, why not? No, we have to know. Why not Dinesh D'Souza?
I don't follow him. I don't know him very well. I don't watch a lot of his stuff, so I'm not invested.
Yeah, but why not? Why don't you watch his stuff?
Because
you've obviously watched him before. No, you've obviously watched him before, right? You've seen his debates with people. You have not seen anything with Dinesh D'Souza ever, not once.
I watched him versus Dillahunty, and I thought he was better than Dillahunty, but that's about it.
Okay, but you didn't want to go back for more. Why not?
I don't know. I like news, and Dinesh D'Souza's show is kind of too slow for me. I like a lot quickly, I guess. I don't know, man.
Okay, you finally got your answer. He's too
slow.
slow.
I like chocolate better than vanilla. It's like it tastes
better.
Tastes yeah, I don't know, man.
Come on, that's if you're a chef, you could figure it out, right? Oh, well, I like the earthy notes of the cacao or whatever chefs would say.
I like the speed of delivery of other people who I would actually listen to.
So last Sunday it was Easter, which is why we didn't have the show, and last Sunday was also a big hoopla over what Easter falling on the same day as Trans Visibility Day. That the Biden administration recognizes this is officially Trans Visibility Day. It also happened to be Easter. I know John and I kind of went at each other a little bit on Twitter when that happened.
I want to hear about that. What was exchanged?
I mean, what do you want me to read the tweet? Is that
you don't have to read the tweets, but what was the essence of it? I'd like to hear you guys kind of get into that a bit.
I said it was bad, especially for a Catholic president to announce and certainly to draw attention to Trans Visibility Day on the holiest day in the liturgical calendar, and it betrays a poor set of priorities for our society, and very much calls into question the devoutness of Biden's Catholicism.
1 second, let's take it even a step further, John. You didn't just say that. You were implying, and I think if we go back to that, it was more intentional than not.
It was fully intentional that he drew attention to it when he didn't have to.
On Easter, on purpose, right?
Yeah, it's not a federal holiday. Like, it's not an official federally recognized holiday. He decides to announce it every year. It fell on Easter. He decided consciously, well, I don't know how conscious Biden is, but his administration decided consciously to announce it and draw attention to it again. Like,
And why, John? Why do you think he thought that it's important to do it on that day?
uh,
Do you think it's more because it's the official day, or it, it's the time where he's gonna, get the most action out of getting people to discuss what's going on in that movement, or what do you think?
I don't know. I don't like to mind read as a general rule. I see it less as like intentional malice and more as reckless disregard. I just think they just didn't really give a shit.
Why should he have regard for the many days? Let's say I think it's like 25 days that Easter falls on, or every couple of a decade and a half or something.
Yeah.
Why should he care about that if he's a government official? We have a separation of church and state.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
like it's taking away from Easter. There are many trans people who are considered some Catholic. There's some Catholics who don't care about trans day. I don't think there's anything specifically in Catholicism that's anti-trans people, or somehow it's like bad to be trans in like the Bible. Where is that even said? No one even talks about transness. So I don't see what this has anything to do with the Bible
Well, there's
or
like
Catholicism as a whole.
threw like 5 different questions at me there.
That's okay. You can follow them. I just don't see it. So I'll give you a clear question.
Yeah, please.
Why?
What did I actually say? I'm looking up the tweet now. Sorry, it's hit me. I want to hear the specific.
Okay,
question.
I'll give you a more specific question.
Yeah.
Why is it an affront to Catholics if Easter can also fall on Trans Visibility Day, and the president announced it because that's the day that it falls on? Why is it an affront to Catholicism? What uniquely about Trans Visibility Day is anti-Catholicism?
Oh, I mean, it's anti-Christian in general, and the reason for that is because it's basically it's doing a equivalency of values between the values espoused by Christianity and by its most holy day of Easter, and drawing similar attention, and the government deciding to draw similar attention to another celebration of a parallel set of values, and acting like the set of values are remotely equivalent or as remotely as important to our society and its flourishing is stupid.
Should the
And
government make proclamations? Should the government withhold making proclamations because of the beliefs of religion?
it should withhold making proclamations that aren't true. For
What is
one,
it? What? Wait.
but
What is it? No. What does that have to do with Trans Visibility Day?
it has nothing. It has to do with the fact that the separation between church and state is an institutional separation. It's not a philosophical separation. Governments rest on values. Societies and cultures rest on values. Religion.
What's the problem with the value of trans visibility, John?
The problem is that promoting a lifestyle that turns people to lifelong medical patients, very often sterile, is not good to promote on a societal level. It's important to have.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with Easter. Your problems is with Trans Visibility Day. You're just butthurt it also fell on Easter.
Yeah, it makes it worse because now you are not only, promoting values that are bad, again, if you're promoting on a societal level as the way that they have, to speak nothing of tolerance, because that is something I believe in. But putting it on the same day as Easter is a double affront, yes, because now you are.
Do you think that
that
Joe Biden simultaneously announced Trans Visibility Day and then went home and celebrated Easter with his family?
Oh, I'm sure he did.
I don't see what's the issue here.
The issue is that it's contradictory. I mean, if you
I don't see the contradiction. I see people. I don't see the contradiction at all.
The contradiction is you actually want to know something in the Bible is to go forth, be fruitful, and multiply, unless you're going to be a priest. So, if you're a Catholic actively promoting stuff that makes it difficult to be fruitful.
I mean, are you upset when people promote birth control?
Yeah, actually, especially to children. Hormonal birth control to pushing hormonal.
That's not what I said.
18-year-olds is crazy.
It's not what I said. First of all, it's
Don said birth control, right? Like, condoms shouldn't young people get some sex education around what's out there?
Yeah, people should have sex education, but it's a bit of a false equivalency because if you go through a procedure, that's a hell of a lot more permanent than a condom.
What do you mean? I'm asking if there's an issue with, because we've moved. We've like done a whole front flip and a half to get. No, I'm just because every time you answer a question, you move on to something completely else.
I
It's
answered the
it's
question.
what was the incompatibility between Catholicism and Transvisibility Day? And your answer was values. When we go down to the values, I didn't hear anything about unique about Catholic values that's not compatible with Transvisibility Day, other than trans people is bad, transness is bad, it shouldn't be promoted.
I
That's not the
just
same thing.
I just gave you the value, man. It's be fruitful and multiply. It's family, and also the idea that mankind is made in the image of God and should be tampered with, almost never, and extremely rarely. Like,
So
you want me to pull up Catholic
no,
answers?
but you're making it that's an affront to
You
Catholicism.
you
Half
listen.
the things that people talk about is an affront to Catholicism.
I can just read quotes from the Pope if that makes you happy.
John, what are you
Um,
not understanding from my question? I feel like I'm like I'm speaking
you asked
past you, and
why it was
I don't know how to
authentic.
fix it. I don't know how
You
to
asked.
fix it.
Okay, let me do a little bit of a readback of the record, for the audience, if nothing else. You asked me why I was an affront to Catholicism. I said, one, equivocating the values of Trans Day of Visibility as remotely comparable to Easter on a societal level, as remotely as important, is inherently an affront, and it
Who said
de-dignifies
that they're remotely as important?
the
Who
fact that they
said
were
that?
voted by the federal government on equal terms.
The federal government is just saying Happy Easter, Happy Transvisibility Day.
Those sound like very similar celebrations, my friend. So that's
For,
number
there are
one.
some people
Number,
who are not Catholics, John, who are represented by the government,
cool.
and the
That's not
government
the
is wishing them and people who care about this Happy Transvisibility Day. And
yeah.
to those who care about Easter and don't care about that, they wish them a happy Easter. And to those
That's
who
a
care
separate
about
argument.
both, or celebrate both, they're giving it to both of them. But
Yeah, cool.
you seem to say that it's inappropriate for a government to talk about transvisibility on the day of Easter, like the
Yes.
Catholic Church and the Catholic people are monopolizing that day. You just
Well,
don't like Transvisibility Day. Has no issue. It could have been on a different day entirely. You would have still had an issue with it. You're just mad that it's also on Easter.
okay, so many things there. So beautiful. First of all, love the mind reading. This time you're actually right. I wouldn't like it either way. But if you
It's not mind
value,
reading. It's my conclusion from what you said. I'm
okay,
asking you. It's not
yeah,
mind reading, and I'm correct. I didn't even read your mind. I took what you
yeah, I
said
just
and I
right.
answered back your question. I don't understand why you're so defensive.
And so this other thing that you okay, fair enough, you're right. This other thing that you've said about how there's more people in the country than just Catholics, I agree with you. This is a separate argument why the government should value Catholic values over trans values. That's a separate argument. I believe the original point that you made and the point that you were getting on me for moving the goalposts around is why it was an affront to Catholicism. I
Correct.
just explained it to you. There's two other reasons. Again, if you want to do to the other Catholic values, be fruitful and multiply. Permanently sterilizing yourself is kind of difficult. Man is made in the image of God.
Transvisibility Day is not a day to say we should permanently sterilize. Hello, people. Trans people. Permanently sterilize yourselves. That's not what that day is about at all. You are taking something entirely and attributing to it all the negative things that you have about whatever
Yeah,
that
it's a
issue is.
beautiful thing called second order effect.
And
No, it's not.
this was promoted by Biden, who is a Catholic, right?
Allegedly, although he's gotten in hot water for that recently because he
Okay.
also is very
Well,
much not pro-life, which is
he
also
calls
very
him he calls himself a Catholic, and let's not
that's
get
called
into the
Catholic.
no true Scotsman thing, but
Yeah,
so he calls himself a Catholic. So
yeah,
obviously he doesn't have a problem as a Catholic,
yeah.
stating what he stated about this. Um, doesn't that tell you that there is a Catholic position that's okay with this? And why is your position greater than that person's Catholic position,
So
or
that's a
more
great
correct?
that is a fantastic question. And the reason is because the Catholic Church is not like the Protestant churches. The Catholic Church is not sola scriptura. They do not believe that its individual members have the right to interpret scripture however they want. The Catholic Church has actual divine authority to interpret its religion. And if the Catholic Church says things like, again, I could pull up the quotes from the Pope if would really
Yeah.
be what convinces you, Don Don. If the
No,
Catholic
I
Church
don't need the quotes
and
from the
social
Pope.
issues or gender issues, or the Catholic Church says that Catholicism means it's to be pro-life, then that's what it means, and it's not up for debate. That's the point of having apostolic
Right.
succession and having an authority figure like the papacy and
But then
the
another Catholic comes along, right, John, and says, I don't agree with that. But they're
yeah,
still Catholic, right?
no. Well, they are still Catholic, but they are in this. I forget the exact lingo, but basically, they are violating Catholic doctrine. So they're a Catholic, but they're violating Catholic doctrine.
And then
As I mean,
someone
all
like
Catholics
me,
do to some extent, but
And then someone like me, the only care I give to Catholicism really is, I'm interested whether they're uh, causing, if they're causing detriments to the well-being of their constituents, then I will have a big problem with what they're doing. If they're not, then I won't have a problem. But outside of that, I don't really care about everyone's appeal to divine authority, anything about any of this. And it doesn't really, I don't think, oh, I think you're making an argument kind of like what Don Don was outlining, that you you feel strongly that this is offensive.
Yeah.
And and what about people who find the existence of uh Catholicism, or let's say the Easter day of Jesus, that they find that offensive,
Well,
right?
I mean, that's fine, but what they're finding offensive is the value set that built the civilization that they now enjoy. So, like, that's the question, dude. That's the
Yeah, but
answer.
they just disagree with you. They just disagree with you, right? You
Yeah,
can
that's
say that and be
cool.
like, no, that it's a value set that is the reason why our society sucks. And you can guys argue that, and you're not going to get some sort of objective measurement. You can believe your opinion, they can believe their opinion. But it seems that your outrage here is um, incompatible with a democratic, plurocratic society where there's different people of different beliefs with different voices, who whole share a same government, and we shouldn't take it as an affront when that government speaks and caters to those people. People shouldn't be mad that there's on the front lawn of our village holiday light. There's a Kwanzaa thing. There's a menorah. There's a Christmas tree. There's all these different things they put out there. People shouldn't be upset about that. That other people are represented and have a say in your government, and it happens to fall on the same day. Sometimes that's just how it goes. Sometimes they fall on the same day, especially when you have a holiday that doesn't have a regular date on the Gregorian calendar. It shifts around because it's based on the lunar calendar. So what do you want from it, right? This it seems like to get so outraged, kind of like, how dare they do it on this day? Well, how dare there be people who don't agree with you in a plurocratic society? Like, whoa, congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, this argument sounds really reasonable, and so I appreciate that, and I appreciate that effect on the audience. The reason why it's not is buried in the phrase people who don't agree with you. That's trivializing the issue a little bit. You see, we are a plurocratic democratic society, but we also, in fact, live in a society, and our plural and democratic disagreements cannot go too deep or they crack the foundation and everything goes to shit. You might have been observing this over the last 15 years. So, yeah, when people disagree with the fundamental values that built the civilization, that, yes, subjectively, I actually happen to like my civilization. When people disagree with that value set and then promote things that are acidic to that value set, I don't tend to like it. And I don't think the government that is basically charged with protecting its people and protecting the civilization should be promoting part of the very acid that is destroying it.
Okay,
So,
which
yeah,
which brings me back to the bone. So why are people so upset? It's literally just because it's trans people. It's not. That's what it is. It could have been on a whole other day other than Easter. Are you
yeah,
upset because the government? It's
bad. It's bad every day, but the fact that he was willing to do it on Easter itself as well is just a double affront. Yes.
because you're not special, because Catholics are not more special in the eyes of the government than trans people.
Because the value set that is represented by the holy day of Easter is not viewed as more important to society than trans
Yeah, because the
visibility.
government is neutral. You're upset because the government is neutral on opinions of religion.
Yes, because that's insane.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
actually, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
misspoke.
Okay. No. Okay.
Let's let
Actually,
John clarify. Yeah,
see,
go ahead.
I actually need to make the statement even stronger because it's showing that it's not neutral. Actually, because first of all, okay, so on the surface it looks like it's neutral, and it shouldn't be because there is no such thing as value neutrality once it gets to a fundamental enough level. It's not real. It's fake. So that's number one. But number two, nobody believes that they're value neutral. Does anybody really think that the current policy of the current U.S. federal government is like more pro-Catholic values than it is like more pro-tolerance LGBT values? No one believes that. They're not neutral. The religion that they're forwarding is the modernist secular one. That's the only difference.
What's a modernist secular religion?
It's just sorry for using imprecise speech. It's just it's just a secular modernist value set. It's like
Yeah,
I've never. I mean, for me, are you talking about secular humanism or?
I'm using I use the term religion loosely.
Okay.
The yeah, value set that such as man can remake himself however he likes.
Yeah.
I could articulate like the 5 bullet points on the back of the
yeah,
napkin
you
right now.
can
But
articulate the, but it sounds to me ridiculous. It sounds to me like Jews and Muslims looking at the White House being decorated for Christmas and thinking, "Wow, they just promote their value sets over our value sets." No, it's disgusting affront to Judaism that they don't do Hanukkah as well, and why don't they decorate the house for Ramadan, or how about Diwali? All of these different religious groups that exist within the United States. They can go ahead and, if the president is Catholic, we're going to decorate your house. That's fine. And if you're Jewish and you don't do it, that's also great. What if there's a Jewish president? Would it be a front to Christianity that he doesn't decorate the White House for Christmas?
Yeah, it would actually.
That's
Um,
absurd. That's
so
absurd.
I mean, if you want to
I
explain,
think it's what you're describing is antithetical to democratic secular values that are
actually,
the building block of this society. I think that your emotional appeal consistently to what you think is best and what you think is antithesis to being like, we need to work in the government even when we disagree. And these disagreements about like what religion or what this doesn't matter. This, we can all recognize everyone, even those who don't agree with that, because there's other groups of people. It seems like you just are willing to throw out this the entire culture of what makes a democratic society function.
okay, so there's like 4 different things there. This is so interesting. Okay, so if you can point me to how like Islam or like Judaism was similarly fundamental to like the rise of the United States of America as Christianity, then I'll eat my hat. I think you might be able to make the case for Judaism. You're gonna have a really hard time saying that like Islam was similarly fundamental to the U.S.'s existence and rise. So that's number one. So they can be a front
No,
to
no.
but they're
Do you okay? This is
offense.
like saying, give
I
me an
still have to
example. Give me an example of how Christianity wasn't related to the rise in uh, Newton's theories of the cosmos, right?
what?
Newton, Isaac
Yeah,
Newton,
that's
right?
the points I wanted to hit, but okay, we can add some
Isaac
more.
Newton, right? Christianity was entirely connected. He believed he was a theologian more than he was a physicist. But
Isaac
that
Newton
doesn't,
was highly religious. Yeah.
yeah. So can you give me an example of a physics from that time that isn't influenced by Christianity? It's a ridiculous statement, because what you're doing here is you're looking at the historical record of the fact that those who ran away from Catholicism, those who ran away from what they believed was religious persecution in Europe, came
Very
to the
pure
United States, and built a
observer.
society in which they openly espoused that it should be separate, that religion and church should be, government and religion should be separate. You're the one who's upset that that's the case, not
Okay, we
me.
can do the history lesson too now, I guess. Okay, so
What history lesson?
the comparison to science to society is kind of is misled. Physics is, I mean, it requires a little bit of religion because it assumes that the universe is intelligible, but not in the fundamentally the same way. Religious and cultural values are dead relevant and basically bedrock to building countries and building civilizations, as I'm sure you'd agree, in ways
When you
that
say, what you do when you say bedrock is you paint a picture of a pyramid where there is
yeah,
a bottom base, and you call it, and as opposed to that construction that you're doing and the way you're thinking about it, where this is the bedrock and you're calling it the bedrock, there are so many things that are bedrock and necessary for a society to hold itself, and those are all the components that are active to its current maintenance. So when you talk about a bedrock, you're not talking about material conditions, you're not talking about access to food, water, healthcare. You're not talking about counter movements to those religious movements which drive societies forward. Revolutionary, you're not talking about any of those. You just go ahead and say, this is the bedrock, and you appeal to some nebulous
And
cultural, societal like framework like Catholicism or Christianity's tenets as the bedrock for the society.
yeah, well, and I would just add that I think it's a mistake to call any of these religions or religious tenets to be bedrocks, because um, isn't the Constitution supposed to be that bedrock? Um, isn't the First Amendment? a big part of that bedrock, John?
Yeah, of course it is. But you have to understand that at the time that the U.S. Constitution was written, every single state government was ran in extremely religious fashion. The reason why the Constitution was written secularly is one, Thomas Jefferson was a bit of an odd duck, and then the second reason is because it didn't need to be written in because state governments were already doing it, and also because they didn't want to chafe on different sects of the very puritanical Christianity. I mean,
But isn't
if you read the founding fathers, the Constitution is made for a moral, religious people, wholly inadequate for any other.
But would you agree that your attitude here is kind of an affront to the First Amendment, to what's
No,
been, yeah,
no, and
how
I
would you square that?
Yeah, so the reason is because the First Amendment talked about a separation between church and state on the federal level, and then it was generalized much later, but church and state are institutions. And honestly, if you want to learn actual history, the real reason for that was less of a concern that the church would infect the government and kind of more of a concern that the government would infect the church, as had been common in Europe for a long time. Like the popes would become puppets of various kings, and that was a problem because then all of a sudden the king of the UK had like indirect control over like Catholics in France, right? So that's an institutional thing. What I am talking about is cultural stuff. There is a difference between there should be a separation between church and state, but the separation between religion and government is not only something that was never intended by any of the founders, even Jefferson, because Jefferson
So
understood the
I'm
implications.
saying something more.
Let me say this. Not only would it not be desirable, it's not possible. You cannot separate governance from baseline moral assumptions, and those baseline moral assumptions are assumed. They're fundamentally faith-based. You
Yeah,
can't.
but I'm trying to say something more specific to your position on. Would you be a fan of the government outlawing other like celebrations being on the same day as what was it, April, you know what was the date,
Outlawing
One
others.
second, one
are
second. The
you
day it was March 31st.
Yeah. So are you a fan of having whatever day Easter lands on,
Yeah.
that no other, celebration or mention can happen on that day? Are you a fan of making that law?
Hold on. Those are two different questions. Do you mean should the federal government not celebrate other days on that day, like
Sure.
proclamations, or they should
No,
outlaw the states?
no,
And
no. I'm saying should there be any legal precedent at all regarding any of your feelings towards what transpired with regards to Trans Visibility Day and
um,
Easter being? Because I think if you say yes,
Then
then
you're
you're in
consistent, and
violation
you're
of the first.
consistent.
Then I think you're in violation of the First Amendment if you say yes.
well, I mean, if you want to I'm such a, I'm giving the answer based off motives that you guys are going to hate, but this is legitimately what came front to mind. I think it's a separation of powers issue fundamentally. I think the executive branch can issue whatever proclamations it damn well pleases,
Yeah.
and nobody can stop them really, other than the
Why should
legislature.
anyone stop him?
Well, I didn't say that I just said that they probably shouldn't be stopped on that basis.
Right.
As it's
My main thing is, John, if you, but
it
do
would
you
be
agree with
bad, but like it shouldn't be. Let the
John?
Congress have the right to do that.
John, do you agree with me though that it would be anti First Amendment to rule Easter to be someday that nothing else could be celebrated or announced
Yeah,
federally?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
like
you
especially
don't feel that way, or do you feel that way?
no, I think that the federal government outlawing other celebrations if they happen to fall on the same day as Christian holidays is 1000% a violation of the First Amendment.
Okay.
Because now you're talking about individual citizens and states, which also have individual rights, by the way.
So you're
And
just saying this is wrong to do
yes,
from
this is
your worldview perspective. You don't want to see new legislation come in to prohibit
yeah,
this.
I wouldn't see.
Okay.
There's not a lot of legislative things to do. I mean, it's just the president making a declaration from his very high office. Like he's not
Yeah.
making a federal holiday. It's
Do
bad.
you
And
know when Trans Visibility Day began?
push 2009, right?
Hmm?
2009, I believe.
Yeah,
Obama.
yeah. So it's been there
Yeah,
since 2009.
yeah.
Was Obama trying to do an affront to Easter when he did that?
I don't know, but he certainly wasn't giving it enough for. He wasn't certainly exercising enough care to like look
Okay,
forward a decade and a
okay.
half. Like
And why didn't you care about Trans Visibility Day last year?
because I didn't know about it.
Because it didn't fall on.
Because I didn't. Yeah, because it didn't fall on Easter. Because I didn't know about it. If I
And the year
heard about
beforehand. And
it, that's
do you think if this year it didn't fall on Easter, you would care as much about it?
If I knew about it, I would still care, but I would care more because it fell on Easter because it's a double affront.
It's a
Yes,
double. It's an affront that the government
it's an affront that the government.
recognizes a holiday that's been around since 2009, also on Easter.
It is an affront that the federal
Okay.
government appropriate.
I don't really have anything to say to that. I think like if that's your position, that's the bullet that you're biting, then that's the bullet that you're biting.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say about that.
you had
I
like
really
some
don't.
other points earlier, and I wanted to talk about it, and I'm kind of sad. Here's one that I actually managed to write down. I don't know. Somebody spooled back the tape, I guess. One of the other ones we were talking about is why is religious values more of a bedrock to society than like material conditions and things along those lines? Does somebody want to articulate
No,
that?
I didn't say necessarily better or more bedrock. I'm asking why do you view
Okay.
society's development and what keeps societies together, and
Mhm.
at bedrock you put religious values.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question.
And the reason. So if I was to do this, right? If I was okay, how do I figure out what is the bedrock for society's functioning? I look at, well, what makes societies be able to have farming? What enables them to have schools? What enables people to be healthy? What are I would look at what these things are, and I would look at what are the institutions that make it happen, and I look at these institutions, and then I look, okay, which types of societies are better off and not better off, and then I end up seeing that throughout history, there's periods where Christian societies were better off and less off as compared to Muslim societies and other societies around the globe. And it
Mhm.
seems that religion has lower predictability than when I look at other metrics. Wouldn't I have to consider those metrics as bedrock?
No, and the reason for that is because you are confusing the like material well-being of a society with its cohesiveness. It's kind of you say, what do we look at to see how well a society is functioning? That kind of actually begs the question. I'm not saying you did this intentionally, by the way, but it kind of begs the question of what do we mean by functioning? And it seems that by functioning for you, you just mean like higher standard of living, and that's important to me.
How would you mean functioning? I mean,
Yeah.
I would say that a society is better. I mean, let's just be real. I think a society is better off. Let's put it this way. I would rather society um, be Christian. I would rather live in a Christian society with better healthcare, better education, better economies, better housing, than I would than live in a society with atheists where I'm poor, for example.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate that.
And the other way around entirely as well. I would rather live in an
Oh, we're
atheist
getting
society as opposed to a Christian society. If I
sure.
was poor to be in a Christian, I would rather live in a Muslim society as opposed to a Christian society if I was going to be poor and starving in the Christian society.
Sure.
So
Well, yeah. So there's
you're
like
so when we look about what is bedrock, it's hard for me to understand how Christianity is that
yeah.
bedrock. That religious values are the bedrock.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons for that. Again, I don't value material well-being as the very highest function of a society. It is very high, but it's not the only thing that I value. When I say looking at whether a society is functioning, um, I think the most fundamental thing would be, is this society continuing to like exist, or is it going to be collapsing and like go away? Because you're right, like religious France or like religious Spain, they had ups and downs in material well-being, but France state was still France. Spain was still
Why do
Spain.
you? Sorry, what do you mean by material well-being?
I mean, I, I
Do you mean human
elaborate on
well-being?
your. I mean, like quality of life,
Oh, okay. So wellness of body and mind.
wellness of body. Yeah, sure. It's.
Okay.
I
I just didn't know what you
I
meant by
don't.
material.
Yeah.
And what is
Maybe
necessary? What is
physically and
necessary for
functional.
wellness of body and mind, Travis?
What you mean
What's
by
that?
mind usually?
Body and like your brain. Okay,
Yeah.
wellness of body and mind. What are the things necessary for wellness of body and mind? I
Well,
mean,
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be nutrition, sleep, exercise, uh, uh, purposes that satisfy the sentiments of the subject. All of these things are going to uh, uh, lead to fruitful living, right? So
But
now,
yeah, I'm going to
and of course, we have demonstrated that you don't need any adherence to any kind of religion to succeed in this. And I would say that a lot of the progress we've seen in the past 100 years in society has been in spite of religious dogma, not in line with it.
I prefer
So,
the term tempered by as opposed to in spite, but I see your
well,
point. I'm
I
going
get,
to your terms.
but you would agree that some of these dogmas and fundamentalism we needed to overcome in order to push forward,
You
is
have to,
from a human well-being perspective,
you'd have to
and
give me, you'd have to give me specific cases, but sure.
well,
Um,
if you think that, like, if you're applying that to all human beings, right? I can see how people would want to, like, stop, wait, what do you mean? Which human beings, which ones? And when we start getting into new categorizations of different kinds of human beings, like, it's not just like man and woman. There's a spectrum of different identities now, and that's getting confusing. And how people are trying to parse that with what their religious texts are telling them. But I think this is something that, you know sociologically we are overcoming at the moment. But you know when I see you reacting in this way to this, John, strongly, you see Easter as a holy day not to be fucked with, right?
correct.
Okay, you see it as this holy day not to
Well,
be fucked with.
certainly not to be
I
funded by the federal government.
now I see it as some people's holy day that they would prefer that it not be fucked with. And in my own well-being calculus, I consider that. I'm not some evil prick that thinks that the way you feel about this day shouldn't be taken into consideration. Of course I value your well-being. But then I also would ask you, for these people, the very small, I would say, amount of people compared to the people who are engaging in Easter, the very small amount of people that this may be appeasing by the leader announcing this on this day. That might mean the world to them. Does their well-being outcome mean anything to you with regards to how they feel about the president saying this?
Does it mean something to me? Of course it means something, but does it outweigh that I think the deleterious, harmful effects that this represents? No. Honestly, I think in some ways, depending on the person who is temporarily like invigorated, I think it could actually be harmful to them, depending on their age. But I want to actually get to the question. So I'm going to stop playing philosopher about like what really makes a society good, because that's like an impossible question to answer quickly enough. I'm actually going to play on your guys' terms that society functions well when it has high quality of life. It is my contention that maintaining a high quality of life in terms of material conditions is actually becomes extremely difficult when the society is not culturally united. Even like, and I'm going to point to America because the USA is the richest country on God's green earth, and that has ever been on the planet. And yet, our deaths of despair are like massively high. We have massive mental health issues. We have a million other problems that I could point to. And I think that if you let us go down this road long enough where we disagree on stuff that's actually not something we can just kind of talk out, man, and is actually like, matters of a priori moral assumptions. If you go down that road, the society will collapse and the material conditions that we love so much will fall into. That's my
But I
concern.
but I think I
And
think
so to answer
you
your question, Don, bedrock is what the other things rely upon. Cultural unity can exist in poverty or richness. It doesn't matter. I can have it in a
Okay,
village.
how would you predict if a society is going to experience cultural unity or cultural schisms? What would you look for? What are the things that you would look for?
Deaths of Despair is a pretty good one. Level of bipolar, levels of partisanship are very, very high. You can
Okay, and then you ask, well, how can you change that? What are the tools to changing that? One of the tools is big investment in mental health. You look at countries. You look at countries that are also like I've lived in in a different country, Travis is from a different country, and I can tell you that life in Canada, the society, they're living about just as well as we are, right? They're living, and they have no, they have less people who deal with
I would
mental
argue.
health issues
I
than
would
us.
argue. I would argue better.
In
But
Canada, yeah, that's right. Isn't that autistic girl in Canada who's like late 20 something gonna like kill herself publicly in 2 weeks? You hear
who's
about
that?
that? Medically assisted suicide? Like some girl who has like
Other
ADHD.
countries, Norway has had it for years. Sweden has had it for years.
That's
These
gonna go
countries have had it. Yeah, but these countries have had it for years. You look at
Oh yeah.
countries like Israel. Israel has some of the reportedly happiest population, but since before the war. So I think that you have this idea of like that it's because of a degeneration. What we're seeing in America is because of Christian values. That's the direction that you were going with it. But you
Well,
can't actually. That's just your opinion. That's just your opinion.
oh, that's
You
just
have
like
no way to really show that. No,
both
it's not.
big
It's more than there are things that are demonstrable. We can demonstrate how poverty is associated with societies having schisms and problems. We can
Yeah.
show how pandemics have caused this. We can show specific things that actually cause this, more than just my faith and my belief in that this values are the right ones to live your life by.
Yeah, well, I would like to finish my last answer, and then we'll get to the new thing. My arguments do tend to sound a little bit more reasonable when able to get through them. I wanted to answer that question that you had earlier about why I think it's bedrock, as opposed to the material conditions. I just want to put a button on that for the audience because I don't want it to sound like I have a question left unanswered. And the reason is
Okay,
because you
fine.
have a poor but culturally united and harmonious society, but you cannot have a rich and you can have that. That's fine. But if you have a society that is fundamentally enough culturally divided on important enough issues, the material conditions cannot remain good by their nature because they're going to be fought over. So one relies on the other, one is bedrock. That's why I had my answer the way it was. Now, Don Don seems to disagree. Don Don, if I'm understanding you correctly, I'm going to try to steelman you here for a second before we deal with this. You think the association can go the other way, and that material conditions very often might be the cause of a cultural schism, namely COVID-19 is the example you alluded to. Is that
No, what I'm saying is that you can't measure what you're talking about. Impossible. It's full of just conjecture. It's full of just
Yeah,
your opinion, as
or
opposed to things that scientists and people who try to make models of this look at, because they can actually point those things out as the cause. And they can
yeah,
and they can manipulate them and change them. So long as we're just clear that you're aware that this is when I say your opinion, because it's truly your opinion, as opposed to the work of people who study the field.
I mean,
That makes sense? Okay, fine.
it's a position of political philosophy of what's most critical to a society. I mean, I think like if you just look at historical examples, there was lots of very very poor places throughout the world that were very culturally united. I can like give you like 1,000 anecdotes of villages and societies that existed like that.
Oh,
I don't.
sure, but usually what we're talking about is a drop in the standard. So if you're going to see a drop in the standard, you're going to see a drop in the economy. You're going to see social discohesion show up,
That's normal.
right?
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's
right,
somewhat.
and as opposed to the degradation of people's, let's just say, religious values.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I would, of course, it's somewhat cyclical, but one takes more priority than the other. And I already believe that it's the values thing. Again, we already talked about why it's bedrock in those cases, so I just kind of assume that it goes over as a matter of
Yeah,
default.
some values are good to get rid of, and
Yeah, some values are get rid of,
right?
some aren't. Yeah. Okay, are
Yeah.
you back? Sorry, you paused. Okay.
I never left. I never left.
His voice and his picture's unsynced right now,
Oh yeah,
which is
just a bit of delay.
okay. Sorry.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
Oh,
There's
you're
other
good
Oh,
now.
I see
You're
that
good now.
happen. That was weird.
So
Okay,
you're
that's
100%
weird.
right that it's somewhat cyclical. Like, right, like after the 2008 crisis and after COVID-19, like, we people came apart. Like, I'm not saying that there is no cyclical causality here. Of course there is. But like the USA Like, let's use the 60s as our start. Like the
I'm
U.S.
just saying you can't measure what you're talking about. You can't measure what you're talking about.
Sure, I cannot measure it the same way like a scientist can measure material phenomena. This is a matter of political philosophy. But we're going to do a little bit of historic analysis. We're going to think, just a little bit outside that box here. If you go,
Yeah, and let's look at Egyptian societies. Let's look at Christian. You're gonna try to point the finger that Christianity is somehow this great
actually, right now I'm just talking about cultural unity.
progenitor of society.
Right now it doesn't.
Okay, then I don't understand. Go ahead.
Different argument. I'm making a very limited argument now, and then I'll go further. Right now, I'm just talking about cultural unity. It doesn't really matter it does matter what you plug in, but for the purposes of this argument, it doesn't matter what you plug in. And the idea is that, again, in America, bit of historical analysis. You look starting at the 60s, you look to today. We have undoubtedly gotten much, much richer from the 60s to today, just in terms of the amount of buying power because our technology has gotten so much better. I don't think anybody would argue with this. However, we see our cultural situation in terms of discontent, in terms of partisanship, in terms of vitriolic rhetoric, I think it seems to me has gotten much, much worse, which indicates that, to me, pretty easily that the direction, at least on the net, while there's some examples of, bad economic conditions causing bad cultural conditions, I think if you look at the meta trend over the last 80 years, I think it's very obviously been the case that it's the cultural conditions that are weakening kind of independently of the material conditions. So that's what I would say.
So how do you measure how do you measure, what'd you say? Cultural cohesion.
Yeah,
how do you measure?
That's a fantastic question. I would love to give you a more precise answer. I'm sure people have actually attempted to measure this. There's great books on this. Bowling Alone is a really good one. You could argue that, actually, Alexis de Tocqueville talked about.
I mean, there was cultural breakdown in the 60s, right? There was cultural breakdown in the 60s.
Yeah, certainly more
right?
now.
It was a fantastic cultural breakdown, right? Society no longer maintained its ways of being racist and holding down black people. It's easy to come in America. Right? That society broke down in a wonderful way. It completely broke that away. Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's not the same thing at all. What you're talking about is when I say breakdown, I mean breaking up, as in division, as in moving.
There was division over the problem of race. Yeah.
Yeah, not really though, and the reason for that is because
really though. There wasn't a division in America over the problem of race.
I would explain to you exactly what I mean, if you'd let me.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so here's exactly what I mean. Exactly what I mean is the fact that, generally speaking, yes, there was division over race, but race in racism actually isn't a fundamental value set. That's first, and like racists would disagree with me. That's fine. They're wrong. They're wrong about a lot of things. And then the other thing is that the division the division isn't as deep, but it's also not as 50-50, basically. So yeah, there were some people who were like left behind, but by and large, society just kind of moved forward, and then everybody else caught up. But what we're seeing today is much different than that. What we're seeing today, it isn't a break from tradition alone. It is a break from tradition, but it's also a break from each other. And you can see this with intermediary institutions. Like in the 60s, sure, racism was being fought over, but we still had intermediary institutions. There was a whole bunch of layers between the individual and the federal government. These are the layers that we call community, that I tend to refer to as social fabric. The more intermediary institutions between the individual and the federal government, the stronger the social fabric is, because that's the more layers of community, local governance, stuff like that. There was more of that in the 60s than there is now. And stuff might have rocked it, and some of the layers might have been peeled away, and that's bad. Although it might have been worth it because racism was even worse. But what we're doing now is destroying the last few...
Peeling back the layers of our community, and now all of a sudden trans people are also visible. Look at that, we did it.
Well, that was fun. You twisted a metaphor. Yeah. Very nice.
I did twist a metaphor, yeah. Very easy to do. When the metaphors are nebulous, it's easy to do.
I'm sorry, am I being unclear? Do I need to explain it again?
No, go ahead.
Read Alexis de Tocqueville. Read Bowling Alone.
No, I understand what these are. I understand what these are. But the point is that when we had television and people started having TVs in their home,
Yeah.
People saw what the Vietnam War was like, and they started seeing what racism was like. The country was like, whoa, it stripped away these layers of communities and let us deal with other people who were invisible to us. And
Yeah.
it's the age of the internet, the YouTube, the platforms that we are on now, we are having more visibility for these people that before weren't a part of our community because there were just such small amounts of them in each small community. So usually they were crazy, they were bizarre, they ended up becoming prostitutes or whatever it might be, or exiled from their
Right.
communities or considered
Great role model.
freaks. Right? And then as now we have more visibility, we can see them and they have a community and they have a voice because they're a part of our federal
I'm not
conversation.
really sure what you're arguing. Are you saying that it's good to get rid of intermediary institutions because
Saying that it's irrelevant. I'm saying that
makes
sometimes it's good, that sometimes it's bad, that it depends on what it is. We just have to kind of learn to adapt and grow with it as these things change and move on.
Yeah, well, it's certainly the case. I'm going to give you another metaphor here. It's not just a pyramid. Society is also a Jenga tower. And it is very true that sometimes you have to pull out some stuff in the foundation that's a little bit loose, a little bit bad in order to make progress and build on top. But if you do it too much, the Jenga tower will fall over. We are running out of pieces. We are running out of intermediary institutions. How about that for
I
a
don't
metaphor?
think so.
We are running out of
And
institutions.
I
What
don't
is
think
that?
so.
The ghost of its former self. Rotary Club isn't relevant. Like states don't have any rights anymore. The federal government is a bully. Like them in Texas, almost like Texas barely managed to assert itself to protect its own border. There are no intermediary institutions anymore. Do you think that's a healthy society? Like, if you want to tell me if you want to know what I'm looking at to measure societal degradation, that's a big one. That's a big one, man. Doesn't look good.
I think that what's happening is that there are groups within our society who before didn't have a say in shit. They didn't have a way to get united, and they're getting unity now. The same thing the radio did, the same thing the printing press did, the same thing the television did, and we're in an age of information with the internet. And what's happening is that governments and communities are lagging behind. That's exactly what's happening. And what we have to do is to meet these modern challenges that are in front of us instead of running back to age-old myths from people who believes Moses got rocks on the mountain by Sky Daddy. That's the problem. You're not going to run back to the past to run away with this problem in front of us. We have this. These people fucking exist. They deserve a place in our government. And I'm tired of people pretending like this government is beholden to Christians. No, you're not. We live in a plurocratic society, and you're just going to have to get along and deal with these people who live here now. That's what it is.
I'm not sure if there was an argument as much as a declaration. Really bottom of the barrel.
There's nothing. I've made enough arguments this entire time.
That's very like 2014.
Well, but it was a prescription.
No, it's not 2014.
I thought we were past the Sky Daddy stuff. I thought that was like
no. We're not past it. Because we forgot about it. We forgot about the Sky Daddy stuff. We forgot that religion has extremely irrational, corrosive elements in it.
I get to make one.
I think but John, wasn't he making a prescription the same way that you were making a prescription with your political opinion earlier?
Yeah, but here's the difference.
What's the difference?
My political views are in line with the fundamental values that this country has rested on forever.
Me too. I 100%. I not only do I not care if 300 years ago Benjamin Franklin thought it was okay to fuck goats. I couldn't give a fuck about that. What I care about are the merits of the argument.
But
okay. And I believe that when I look around the world and I look at other religions around the world, and as being someone of different religion, of being Jewish, and I don't think Judaism and Christianity are compatible. All the Christians out there do, but there's 2,000 years of evidence of Christians killing my people because of their Christian values. So I don't want to hear this Judeo-Christian nonsense. Very two different religions. You're telling me that the government should favor that over me. That's what you're telling me. You're telling that
that's very, very silly. You're telling me that
no, it's not.
Yeah. So what you just said, I don't think Christian values means killing Jews. I didn't
say that the government should withhold to the Christian values, even though I am a democratic member of the society and have a community that has votes and have constituents. They should still favor yours. And I say we should favor all of ours because we're all part of this country. And you go, no, because I disagree with your values.
No, it's no, because you shouldn't gamble. That's why. Actually, that goes full round to what we started at the beginning of the show. Here's why. Our society is pretty cool, man. It was built on a system of values. When you change those fundamental
John,
systems of values, you risk
John,
what is built on top of it. I am
John,
not. I am
your
not.
society, brother,
I
your
am not.
society was built on a gamble.
Yeah, once, and it worked
Not
out well.
one.
I would
It's a
like not to risk
constant.
it again,
Your
please.
society would not have progressed at all if there was no gambles.
Sure, I agree. But the more
So,
fun, I'm not willing to go all in for Trans Day of Visibility.
What do you mean
Actually,
go? You don't have to go all into it. You just have to believe that the government should be neutral regarding Christians, trans people, Jews, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus. That's what it should be. It should be neutral. Everybody,
well,
happy holiday. Your holidays fall on the same day. Mazal tov. Congratulations. Move
yeah,
forward.
I'm not saying ban Muslim holidays. And actually, we have a storied political tradition of great, great religious tolerance. I am not saying that I'm against religious tolerance. I am against pretending like all religions and all value systems are equally critical to the country's fundamental existence and founding beliefs and moral systems. And the more we weaken those moral systems, because this is the difference, and Trav, I did like your comment, but you did interrupt me. The difference is that the value system that I'm espousing has been the bedrock of what the
No, it
country
hasn't.
has on forever.
No, it hasn't.
Yes,
No, it has
people.
not.
Okay, we can
No,
do
it
the
has
historical.
not. No, it
Yeah.
has not.
Those
John,
are
it
pure-
has not. Catholicism, Protestant, Quakers, different people, different beliefs. So much that they were killing each other. They used to
Christians.
kill each other's. You
Yeah,
forgot to mention that a big reason that religion and government are separate in history is because that these groups wanted to make sure the government represent all of them fairly. You also forgot to mention that.
I think John, you're
Like you're so
really
afraid of me getting this point off. Like it must
No,
be
you because you made the point. Say, finish your point. Finish your point. Go ahead. Finish their point.
crazy. They were okay. Yes, they were warring sects. Very true. They were all Christian. The difference is that the moral assumptions that I'm putting forward versus the moral assumptions that other people are putting forward. The moral assumptions I'm putting forward have kept the country going for the last 350 years and have kept it by and large prospering. The moral systems that they are putting forward are either untested or at the very least not tested here. I am not in the business of gambling.
John, you sound like someone who was like, we should not get rid of slavery because this has been the bedrock of this country. When my great daddy came here to Virginia, he had slaves and his daddy had slaves and his daddy had slaves. And I'm not willing to take that gamble. Are you willing to take that gamble? That's all you're doing. You're transposing another argument of my fifis. I don't like it. It's scary. My fifis. Like, that's all you're doing.
You're very silly because you know what got rid of slavery? Arguments from scripture and appeals to Christian values.
They both were appealing to Christians and the religious, and the ones who were arguing against slavery were more wrong on that argument.
Value system. They were appealing to the same assumptions. That's why the country was able to survive. One was wrong, but they were appealing to the same system. That's the point. That is the point, dude. They were appealing to the same system. They were appealing to the same.
Not all of them.
Even deeper than slavery. They had shared values.
They didn't. They disagreed. They both appealed to the Bible for their own position.
Yes, and one of them was wrong, but they both appealed.
Yeah, the one who was against slavery.
They both appealed to the same book, dude. It's not hard. It's really
and today we have,
isn't the uniting force? Isn't the uniting force the Constitution itself that put to rest the fighting between competing religions? Or wasn't that the goal, to try and stop that infighting so that there'd be something underneath that you could appeal to be like, no, we all agreed we weren't going to do this.
Yeah, the Constitution is the legal manifestation of that. Yes.
Okay,
now it's limited,
but don't you think it's the legal manifestation that has been the bedrock to hold together, as opposed to
And none of the founding fathers thought that either. John Adams said very correctly that the Constitution is made for a more religious people and it is wholly inadequate for any other. He said that nothing less than the chains of tyranny would hold back a society that was not moral and religious. And John Adams was dead on. Maybe not religious part, but the united moral part, dead on. It's happening. We're seeing it.
Oh, when a country is not united on their morals, John, they disagree. Like morals about slavery, like morals about gay people, let's look at the times when these people in this country were divided. Let's look at let's go to Israel. before the war? What was the country divided over? The country's divided over issues of
I don't know, dude. I don't know Israeli politics.
it's issues of corruption, government, and religious. It's pretty much religious lines. And people in Israel make the same argument. It's because we're no longer on Judaic values that we have all these problems. We don't agree on this moral foundation. Sure, we don't agree on this moral foundation because there's all of these externalities around it. You always like to think it's just this moral thing. I hope we couldn't have get to. Maybe when next week we'll get to free will because we're at the end of the show.
Yeah,
But huh?
Yeah, I can't. I was excited for the other topics too, but we'll get to them. We'll get to them next week.
We'll do it next week.
Finish your point though. I want to put a bow on this.
But this is a manifestation of us, of our cultures, of our societies, of our groups. And I think that the thing that you keep failing to see here is that the moral standard, in my opinion, I think that the moral standard doesn't simply rest with a text. It doesn't simply rest with a tradition. It also doesn't simply rest with an authoritative body that tells you what are the right and wrong morals to have.
How about Sorry, I'm losing the word right now.
Like, what is it like? So when you look at people, how
about a record of success?
A record of success?
Yeah. How about that? How about the fact that the country is still here?
Yeah, but the country is still here.
How about that? It's not a book. In my opinion,
the country is still here not because of Christians or religion. That's not why it's still here. Because they were explicitly Christianed. That's a historical argument, not a causal environment.
John,
you keep saying the argument that's not my argument. I have not. Okay.
John, just to give you an outline of what I think about that is,
I would love to know what you think.
I think despite everyone's religious beliefs or what grounds their morality or whatnot, I think there has been a united effort in legislation to protect human well-being and also to seek to write legislation that leads to human well-being thriving. And I think that has been the thing that has led to progress and led to higher levels of human flourishing, regardless of what people might believe, and why secular people do well under the Constitution, just like anyone else. Because you said that John Adams said that this is for a religious people, but I would sorry,
moral and religious.
Moral or religious. So sure. You would need to. A person does have moral standings, whether they want to admit it or not. But I just don't think it's religion, like when you keep putting religion as the bedrock of the country. I just think that there's actually something underneath that regardless of our religion, we're going to write legislation that isn't religious in nature, but it's going to focus on protecting and also attempting to maximize or help human well-being thrive.
I agree with you. So the reason why you misheard me is because we've been playing a little bit fast and loose with terminology, so I apologize. Again, I do think Christianity is the best moral system, but it's moral unity underneath the country. And you're right that commitment to moral unity, like equal, liberty and justice for all, like the rights are not given by government, but are endowed on us by our Creator.
Which is not Christian, by the way.
What part's not Christian?
Liberty and justice for all.
What makes you think that?
Well, anti-homosexuality in Christianity.
Okay, you might be misunderstanding what the word liberty and justice means then.
Well,
because Christianity does not necessarily say to.
Is it not literally you don't have salvation unless you're a Christian? Right. So like gays, Jews, Muslims, all burning in hell forever.
Right? No, not actually. What it actually says is you can have, if you want to know what actual Christian doctrine is, it's just about repentance, fundamentally. That's it. So like,
okay.
Well, you don't have to be gay. Like if I like you.
Sorry, Pope. John. Sorry,
actually,
Pope John, that you are the arbiter of what is real and not real Christianity. From my experience with Christian texts and not a Christian, and what are you shaking your head?
It's not me. Every Christian sect that I've
every Christian doesn't believe that if you burn you go to hell.
No,
Kids in Catholic school who grow and go to Catholic school don't believe that if they commit sin and they're sinners, they're going to live in purgatory or whatever if they were never baptized, whatever situation it is.
every
Like
Christian believes.
it's not justice for all. It's not freedom and liberty and justice for all. It's not what it is, right? Travis is talking about a society that puts that forward as its front. That's what makes good society for that way we can live in a pluralistic society where everyone is treated fairly by the government. And it just focused on make sure they live a happy life. And you said you agree with that, but then on the other turn, you turn the other cheek and talk about something else.
One thing I would say, though,
Well, I
John,
mean,
is that there is a brand. I would say, John, that there is an updated brand of Christianity on offer that would probably be consistent with
Yeah.
liberty and justice for all. But
this-
you might call that true Christianity if it's consistent with those values. But of course, you've seen and heard people who would not, who are sitting in the highest offices of religion in the United States. You know, like the Southern, you're going to hear a lot of Southern Baptists screaming about, you know, how these perverts who are just sending your children to hell or trying to get into their minds and whatnot, right? It's not liberty and justice for all. But I think, again, I will
Well,
say
actually,
that you are probably a brand of Christian, John, that probably does believe in liberty and justice for all. But I think you've come to that conclusion through your empathy drive, through your sentimentality, in spite of what your religion might tell you about it, like a lot of religious people do to make sense of the more scary anti-human well-being texts that they read.
Yeah, a couple of things. Every Christian sect that I'm aware of believes in the forgiveness of sins if you merely repent. Like that's, you know.
But what if you don't?
That's the
What
whole
if you
point of.
don't?
If you are unrepentant for sins, yes, you are in trouble. I know I struggled with this personally and regarding a couple of sins because guess what? Nobody's perfect. It's an issue. That's like the whole point of Christ. So yes, if you repent, you're fine, generally speaking. Although nobody really knows but God.
Right. If you do the
Well, that's if well, that
John, that's not a trivial thing you've just said. Do what's
what Christianity was.
do
Not.
what's commanded of you, or else. That's not liberty and justice for all.
Well, it's not. Well, it's liberty and justice for all in regards to the government, because the government.
Okay.
Again,
Yeah. I agree with the government. I agree with the government, but I'm saying,
you know why we're disagreeing? This is actually exactly my point. Us three have different understandings of what liberty and justice for all means, right?
okay.
Like those.
What does liberty mean?
No. I'm not going to define it because we don't have time. I would love to do this later, but I'm trying to make a broader point. These values that like are in our Constitution, that like the pursuit of well-being, the maximization of, you know, equality, justice, liberty for all, those words can still spawn massive disagreement if we don't share baseline underwriting, like moral a priori assumptions that I would characterize as religious assumptions, but you don't have to make those assumptions.
So religion is what you call those religious assumptions. Keep going. This is why
a country, a society has to share that underlying moral unity, because that's
not religious. That's not religious, John. That's not religious, John. That's not religious. Stop playing so fast and loose with religious and make everything religion. That's not religion. Religion is usually it has text. It uses gods. It's not just religion. That's Catholic. When you say Catholicism, you're not just talking about that. You're not just talking about that. So stop saying that's just religion.
You guys, I honestly think we should pick this.
My argument. If you would let me get to the second stage, it will make a lot.
John, you can't have 15 stages in a dissertation every time you make a point.
Make 2 stages.
You do. No, you don't, John. No, you don't. You have a why and because and therefore, which implies, which is the reason. That's what you do every time. Of course, I'm going to cut you off at some point.
You ask me lots of different questions. I have to answer them. No,
John, I ask you a lot of questions because you say a lot of things.
But at least try to make the audience understand this if nobody on the panel is going to. Look, 2 stages. 1, societies need a unified moral bedrock that they all agree on. Unified.
No, they don't. No, they don't, John. Societies have existed for thousands of years without that.
Hey, I'm not arguing with you right now. I'm just like articulating my argument to the audience.
Everyone's heard you already a million times. You don't have to keep repeating yourself.
It might have made it difficult for the audience to understand.
The audience understands, John. The audience understands. The audience understands. Okay. For the 4th time, guys, John, you have the floor.
Is it allowed that I get to summarize my thoughts?
For the fourth time, yes, you can have the last word.
Okay. No, I don't need a last word. I just need not my last word to be interrupted. You can speak after me if you like. Stage 1, societies need to have shared baseline moral assumptions. Otherwise, they can't even exist. It cannot be stable. Number 2, America has had a very particular set of baseline moral assumptions. We should probably stick with that and trying to replace it from another one, because in my mind, that's too risky. It feels like a pretty reasonable position. That's what I actually think. And number 3, if you didn't get it yet, the moral assumptions that I'm referring to in America tend to be very Christian. There. See? Not that hard.
Yeah, like I said, for the fourth time, the audience, you've heard John's argument.
Well, now they've actually heard it like concisely in a way.
No, John, everyone's heard it already. Everyone's heard this already.
I have not been interrupted.
Everyone's heard, John. Everyone's heard it already. Everyone's heard it already.
Hang on, everyone in the comment section, let us know what you guys think. Also, try to drop your comment on whether on who you're agreeing with here, because there's a lot of claims being made, a lot going on. I know it's hard to, but you'll be able to go back and check it in when the video's published. But this was great, guys. That was awesome. It was nice to see. It was nice to see that real thick vein come out of John's head today. I haven't seen that in a long time, but that was good. Pumped me up.
Oh yes, it's always nice to get the adrenaline spike.
Well, and you guys, June 1st, try to be there. We're just getting the word out there of Dinesh D'Souza versus Alex O'Connor. Is the Bible true? Will be the topic. It's going to be a huge event. It's and it's going to be live and available on the YouTube channel here. So make sure, of course, you're subscribed. Drop a like on this stream. And anything else you guys want to say?
That's it, guys. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your evening, and we'll see you all next week, as we'll probably get to free will.
Peace.
Yeah, we'll do it. Thank you all.
I want to talk about a remarkable phenomenon that is going on in Asia and Africa, namely the large-scale conversion of Muslims to Christianity. There was a complaint by a guy on Al Jazeera who said that by his count, 6 million Muslims are converting to Christianity each year.
Christians have been saying two things. Number one, God is eternal. Eternal meaning not living forever on and on and on. Eternal in the sense of outside of time. And this concept of eternity, which seemed from a scientific point of view incoherent, now makes complete sense. If God is outside the universe, he's outside of time.
Far from being unable to escape God, there is a very real contingent of non-believers, and I would count myself among their number, who are unable by any means to discover him, who seek and do not find, who knock and receive, as it were, no answer. I think it would be great if God existed. I really do. I would absolutely love to escape death. I would relish being the recipient of unconditional love. Less selfishly, I would love to be able to worship that which deserves to be worshipped. I just don't think it's true. Now, try as I might, look where I can, I find no response, no hint, nothing.